Someone You Should Know, a program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Someone You Should Know. It seems a little awkward because now we are doing the show twice a month. Way back when we were doing it weekly, and also I'm really glad that you're still following the show on the first and the third Wednesdays of each month. Glad to have you with us, and we're going to continue to bring exciting guests to the show, which we have today. And I think you're going to enjoy this year's lineup of people that are coming on to join us in conversation. We are brought to you, as we always are, by our dear friend Christine Dean, who we affectionately know as the networking diva. And, I tell you this every show, that Christine Dean is such a master at what she does with social media and with helping people market their websites, their podcasts like this one, and bringing people together and getting them to engage with each other for the benefit of each other. She is just a master at what she does, and she can talk to you more about what she does in a free consultation. Reach out to her, Christine Dean, thenetworkingdiva.com. Thank you. And Happy New Year, Christine. Thank you for all that you do for this show and for us and for all of the people that you interact with. You are an absolute blessing. Well, it's going to be an interesting show today because I always love when I have a guest that I say to myself, can I really 100% get into this? But I want to know more about it because of it. Okay. Now that's been a tough setup, but my guest today is Sandy Wesson, and I welcome you all the way from the West Coast in Oregon. Hey, Sandy.
Oh, hi, Stuart. Thank you so much for having me today. I look forward to our conversation.
And I am going to say right at the top of the show that I found out about you through a mutual friend. Now, Travis Patton Sr. is a dear friend. He has a podcast, TMG, Tell Me Something Good podcast. And I urge everybody to check him out also. But he said, this is a lady that you need to have a one-on-one conversation with because she is very, very fascinating. And looking at you, I would, number one, never know that you were a registered nurse. And that was really your career, your main career, for a while. And folks, I'll kind of give you a preview of where we're going because Sandy took a turn because of an illness, and has kind of focused and redirected her life, but it includes reaching people who have crossed over to the other side. Well, we all often get that little ooh moment, and I will tell you right off the bat, Sandy, that I have always been slightly skeptical about people who are mediums and clairvoyant, but I have not put myself in a position of saying, it's all a bunch of hooey. Because I have always wondered about it and I've always been fascinated by it. And in our conversation, I'll share a couple of things with you that you will probably very much relate to. So let's start at the beginning. When was Sandy Wesson interested and decided to go into nursing as a career?
So when I was young, I was interested in helping people. And I kind of knew as I was going through high school that I wanted to be a nurse. I actually worked as a nurse's aide. In high school, I worked at the local hospital. So I already had that. Even through high school, I'd get off, out of school and I'd work the evening shift. And so I had been doing that for a number of years. And then when I graduated high school, went to University of Portland for nursing school. And I love my career as a nurse. I worked early on in my younger career, part of my career, as an intensive care nurse for many years. And
Ooh.
love the first year I worked the medical cardiology floor and then went to the ICU, and loved working with the challenges, the clinical challenges, the learning, but also I've always been a person who's heart-centered. And so I was there really trying to support not only the patients, but their families, because the families are going through this too and not knowing. So I worked in situations where there was, people who got well, but people who were very ill and sometimes didn't make it, so having to work with death even then and learn to move in that world also. So I loved being a nurse. In the later portion of my career as a nurse, I worked in the hospice and palliative care end. So again, that is for me, having the opportunity to have those end of life types of conversations with people was like really profound. And so I had that experience, but I went into hospice nursing after my own father died. And I took care of him and helped in his process, even though I had not worked as a hospice nurse then. But I've always been deeply spiritual. I mean, somehow I knew in my 20s, I had a conversation with a girlfriend that, somehow I know that at some point, I'm going to do something that's going to help people. And it's going to be more than being a nurse. And I didn't really fully understand what that meant until, Spirit guided me to do this now. And I'd been working with it for a long time, but kind of behind the scenes, because it is whoa. It's like, so I would work with people, but I've been guided to do it publicly now and to help more people because it's so needed. But I had been doing energy healing for a number of years. And so it's something I've enjoyed doing.
Do you believe that because you were in that aspect of nursing that was dealing with people in the final chapters of their lives and everything, that was one of the reasons that you were able to develop this closeness to the spirit of those people's souls?
I believe that's part of it. But I honestly, 30 some years ago, not knowing any of this, I mean, spiritual, yes, but, not knowing any of this, I had, energy started spontaneously flowing from my hands. I started having experiences and then developed the ability to talk, to channel, so I could hear from people from the other side or spirit, and I could communicate that way. Again, I always just did it for myself, but even as a nurse in the hospital, I reached the point where I could feel, if I was at the end of the day sitting in the office charting, and I could feel energies around me. I could feel people who were out of body. And I would joke to myself, somebody's out of bed, because honestly, if you're in a coma after a severe car accident and you're in pain and all that, who wants to hang out in the painful body, So I don't know whether they were always just like checking things out, gonna go back into their bodies and recover and live on, or whether people who had died and it was their energies that were floating. I don't know at that point. I wasn't as tuned into it, but I've always been sensitive to that. And so, yeah, then working with people at end of life doing hospice and palliative care, I think that did heighten it even more.
You know, again, some of the things that you're saying are bringing up images that I've seen, let's say through movies and all. And I know that there have been times when someone is in a coma that a doctor or nurse or whatever will tell a member of the family, it's okay, sit at the bedside, hold their hand, talk with them, sing with them, whatever. And people have a tendency to say, well, what good does that do? Because they're not here, they're in a coma. But am I wrong in saying that that's not true? That sometimes those, just the voices, even though that person is lying motionless, does
Right.
not mean that there is not an aura about them
Correct.
that is accepting what you're saying.
Yes, because if someone's in a coma, sometimes it's a medically induced coma.
Right.
So they're medicated, so they're not responding, not moving, not fighting, because the body just needs to heal. And so not trying to do the function. There's other reasons that they might be put into a
Is that what they call a twilight? Like maybe they're in a
sort
twilight?
of, yeah. If sometimes there's like the brain can still function, but the body is still, or there's just different levels, or did
Right.
they come in with a massive head injury?
Right.
And so they've got so much swelling in the brain. So there's many reasons, but the bottom line is the hearing is the last to go, even in the dying process. The hearing is the last to go. So, that's why when I was doing that work as a hospice nurse, it's like I would talk to the families and say, tell them what you need to tell them. It's okay. Because the hearing is the last to go. So they might not be alert and oriented and able to talk back, although sometimes people do rally for a short period of time before they actually die. They can be,
Right.
Appeared not to be very alert or very there, and then suddenly they wake up, and then they kind of go into a phase of letting go. So it really varies. But yeah, it is worth talking to a person always.
I just have to ask you this. Because of this gift that you have,
Mm-hmm.
there must be people that question you and whether you are 100% real and all. Have you had to encounter during your career as a nurse and in what you do with clairvoyancy and are there people that just say, "Oh, that's Sandy Wesson. She's just a kook"?
Well,
I just have to say, because I just know that there are so many skeptics, but once they open their minds a little bit to what people like you do and feel and see, then they're doing themselves an injustice. But they still say, "Oh, she's just a little bit. She's one sandwich short of a picnic."
well, when I worked as a nurse, I didn't talk about any of this. I mean, there were reasons
But didn't people see that because you would connect with them
I
with
would, I
with
could,
the patient and the family member, because that family member was wondering what's going on and you're feeling it.
hmm So the family members, usually I didn't communicate this level of my experiencing with families. With the patients, one of my
Different story.
roles, one of my roles in one of my jobs, in I was working as a hospice liaison, so I was working in the hospital as a hospice nurse, but not doing hospice care. I would get the referrals. So I carried a pager. When my pager went off, okay, there was someone had an order for
Okay.
hospice, and I would go evaluate, do they meet criteria, meet with the family, meet with the patient if they could talk, explain hospice, help them understand it, and see if that was something they were interested in. But also my role was, as you know, evaluating this, like I remember one patient in particular, I went in because that person was supposed to be discharged that day. They'd already said yes to hospice. They were going to be discharged. And I went in and I could feel that their energy was really not very much in their body at that point. So that when we talk about their energy was not in the lower portion of their body, it was up higher. So meaning that they're getting closer to letting go.
Right.
And so in that case, I really had to evaluate, should we send them home? Because the last thing we would ever want is for someone to die in an ambulance, in transport. It's like, I'd rather have the family around them in the hospital.
Exactly.
If we can't do it in, days ahead of time, where they can be at home in their own home, with a hospital bed is usually the goal, and, so that they're supported, but the family can be more present with them in a more comfortable setting. So that's always the goal. But sometimes the person is their transition, their death is moving along faster. So then it's just not wise to send them home. So, there were times where I would feel, I'd feel into that presence and recognize that I think this is going to be sooner than later. So.
And do you feel that because of that position that you were in, that when you said to family members, I think we're getting closer, it was not because you're saying that from a medical standpoint, you're saying that from a spiritual standpoint, that the spirit of that person is talking with you and saying that I'm feeling it's getting closer to the time.
Well, oftentimes though, there are clinical signs as well. So, and as a nurse, I'm looking for those clinical signs.
Okay.
So yes, I would feel that presence, but when their breathing starts to change in certain ways, and particularly if they start having secretions and, things like that, then we're definitely getting closer. So I'm looking, when I was doing that role, I was looking at many things. But there were situations where, yes, it was part of what I could feel and communicate. In one situation, this was not as a hospice nurse. I had hospice experience, but I wasn't doing this as my profession. But I had an acquaintance, a friend who had attempted suicide. And family found her, so she was in the ICU, not at my hospital, a different ICU. I was notified, and so each day after my shift, I would go over there and sit with her. And the nurses of that hospital were like, oh, be careful, we're trying to keep her quiet. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was an old ICU nurse, so I'm comfortable with the ventilators and being in the ICU. And it's like, wait a minute. She's trying to end her life because she's not comfortable and feeling alone. There was something going on. So I'm not going to ignore her and not get in and hold her hand and touch her and give her a hug, do whatever. I can work around all the equipment in the room. So in that scenario, eventually she did start talking to me. I could hear her. And I supported her family when they were, coming in all the time too. So there were rare situations, but those were not that I would ever do clinically. That was as a friend, was able to talk to her and hear what she was saying. So
you often feel like you had to have kind of a tough skin to deal with these situations because you're looking at them from different angles.
Yeah, well, as an empath, because as that's part of my gift, and so there are a lot of people out there as empaths that feel everything. They feel the energies of everybody around them, and so that is something that I've had to deal with and learn to deal with. As a hospice nurse, nurses in general have huge hearts. That's why we do what we do.
That absolutely, absolutely, 100%. I agree with you.
And hospice nurses in particular, dealing with end of life all the time and supporting through that, do have to learn how to deal with keeping the heart open, but not being consumed by the job, by the situation. So, in that respect, that's nursing in general. And because I was able to communicate with people, I would not communicate with them. I wouldn't try to talk to them, but I was very aware when they were actually dying or getting ready to die and let go. So yeah, I just had to learn how to manage that, and people do.
The information, and folks, you're seeing it go across the screen, sandywessonrn.com. I invite you to visit the website and everything, because it also will give you a better understanding of who Sandy Wesson is, what she is about. And that's why now I want to kind of move into how you have gone through your nursing career, and this gift that you have now made that into your life's work, in helping people and reaching people. There are words that even in your own biographical information that I have seen, words like psychic, medium, a channeler, an energy healer. These are all words that, again, some people might have a little bit of reserve, but I want you to just share that gift that you have with people, to show them why you are doing what you are doing today, and why they can avail themselves of your gift, and make it meaningful to both you and to them.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate that. So one of the things on my website that it still says on there is nutritional therapy. When I left clinical nursing, I went back to school and got my certification as a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. And so I was really learning so much that you don't learn as a nurse, even as a doctor. They don't learn that degree of everything we had to know about the body and how it works. And so in terms of nutrition and deficiencies. And so I did that. And then I was guided again. Spirit has truly guided my life. And so I felt guided to go back and learn cellular detoxification. So I was learning, okay, so if someone has heavy metals or, the herbicides and pesticides. So I learned how to help people clear from that. And then I was guided to learn neurofeedback. And each time I went, well, I don't know why I'm, being guided to this, until afterwards when I saw, nutrition.
How the pieces of the puzzle.
All the pieces went together. And so nutrition, and then, oh my gosh, the toxins in the body, and then brain injuries, or, those types of issues, concussions. So when I put all of that together, I developed a practice. And that's where, Brain Works for Life was what I was doing, helping people with gut health, brain health, concussions, and things like that. And about a year ago, I started feeling like, gosh, there's something else I need to be doing now. There's something different. And that's when Spirit was guiding me. And it's like, it's time to let go of the clinical, because there's a lot of people that can help with the clinical. But right now, healing in other ways is really needed. It's really important at this time. And so that's when I kind of made the shift, and I was guided to start helping people more publicly. Because when I would do, I've got a table here, when I was doing energy healing on people, I would feel I would feel someone come in, and one client was like, I'm feeling a presence of someone, and it's a really angry energy. Does that make any sense to you? She goes, oh yeah, it's either my dad or my brother. Okay. And so things like that were happening. And so I would clarify with the one and then allow them to communicate, allow them to talk, and helped my client understand that your dad is no longer angry. That is healed. He died years ago. He had to portray that energy so that I could perceive it, and so that I could ask you and help with clarification. But the healing conversation between them that just came through me, I just, whatever he said, but he could hear what the daughter said. So it was just helping with that communication. And I had that so many times when I was working with people doing energy, helping with energy clearing and energy healing. That was happening more and more and more. So that's when Spirit said, see, this is what really needs to be done. It's not just doing energy healing. I mean, I just, I can talk to people on Zoom around the world, but right now it's mostly in the US, and help with those communications. Because Stuart, what I have found, I will say, when I was doing the work in hospice and palliative care, that was very, very sacred work. This takes it to a whole new level, because now I am helping both the person who's crossed over, who's no longer in body, and I'm helping the family members who might still be struggling from, say it was a tumultuous relationship, or maybe one of the parents left while the child was young, and so there were those feelings of abandonment, or whatever it is. That's still affecting the person in body. That's still affecting us. And that healing is really important. I can say this has just been the most sacred work, and I've learned so much being able to, having the honor to help this. I've learned more about what it's like to be on the other side, what happens after we leave our bodies.
You have become a bridge,
Yeah.
to help people. The people, I'm sure that the people that are watching and listening to this show from everywhere, some of them are really absorbing what you're saying. There are probably still some of them that say, "Oh, she's just another Teresa Caputo," and Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium.
Yeah, I've heard the name. I don't follow it.
She did on television what you do in real life, and I don't doubt that some of what is done in front of television cameras is embellished a little bit, but very often she would be sitting in a restaurant, and all of a sudden she would get a feeling that someone sitting 2 tables away or something was wrestling with something in a spirit, and she would avail themselves of that. Is that anything that you have ever felt just in your everyday life, that you have been someplace where you have felt this energy?
There have been a few times, but honestly, I keep my boundaries.
Okay.
So
and you have the ability to do that?
Well, I say I keep my boundaries. There has been a time when so normally it's working with just individuals. There was one time I was working with someone that someone she knew had been involved in the apartheid, in the killing in the apartheid. And so energetically, she felt like, oh my gosh, there's something I need to look after this. So we did. And, you know, she was here and I was just went into opening up because these were souls who were stuck. These were souls who had not crossed over. And there was a large number of them.
Right.
And so that to me was just like, I felt the energy of like so many. And when I communicated with them and I asked them, you know, they're like, we don't know how to move. We don't, you know, we just don't know. And so I did, in that circumstance, I did assist by calling in help, not just me. It's like I called in, you know, the help of Jesus and angels and, you know, all the higher realms, because there was a lot of help needed to help these people cross. And they did. They did. And I felt the difference in the energy, as well as my client. We're both like, whoa, that just happened. We both felt it, you know. So, and then one other time I was at a conference and someone was asking about what I do, and it was a spiritual conference. And so someone was asking what I do, and I explained it. And when I mentioned, because this woman asked me, what's the most challenging, what's the most difficult situation you've had? And I said, oh, well, and I kind of explained in a shortened version what I just told you. And when I said the word apartheid, I felt again another massive energy. And I thought, okay, all right. Just by saying it, I opened up. And so I kept saying, it's like, okay, I'll help you, but not right now. I'm in the midst of trying to register for this, and then I've got to go. So then the next day when I was in session, because it was in a meditation and they were there, and I thought, and I was trying to say, I'll help, but not right now. But, you know, it's like, no, they needed it. So I stopped and did the same thing. I just called in, I talked to them, and then I called in lots of help. And, you know, they were able to cross. So there are situations where people get stuck. And so that has been a not new experience, but newer in terms of the volumes like that. But again, and I was trying to understand how this happened. So I was asking spirits, like, okay, how is it there's so many? And what I was told was that just like in life, if something major happens, there's a trauma, and we go into flight, fright, or freeze. When there's murders like that, and they freeze, it's like sometimes they don't even know they're dead, or there's just so many. And so that for me was a real eye-opener. So it's okay, I can understand that. You know, you don't know what to do. It's not that normal process of death that I was used to working with in hospice or in the ICU. So that made me more aware of sometimes there's a need to help people who are stuck.
Do you feel that what you have, this gift that you have, this is something that you and other people like you are blessed with? Or is this something that somebody says, I would like to have these abilities, and it's a learned process?
I think that we all have the capacity to develop our gifts. I'm not sure what or how or why I did, other than throughout my life when things were happening and I say, okay, I don't understand it.
Well, you said this all started at a very young age, and all that you started to have these feelings. So this is something that as you got older, it got older with you too.
Yeah. And even when Spirit was encouraging me to do this publicly, and I was still in that, but wait, why? You know, there's other people who do this, you know, why? And so then I literally was shown the episodes throughout my life that prepared me for this, that this was, I think, part of my path.
Yeah.
And even though I was kind of pushing back on it a little bit at first, then they took me through the episodes as a hospice nurse and the episodes in this and that and that. And so I was shown all of these.
Like we said earlier, it's a puzzle, and these are all pieces that fit together to become that puzzle. You know, we often hear words like a psychic, a channeler, a medium, and all. What are the difference between? Are these all synonymous, or are they all different in some way, shape, or form?
Well, so when we look at the clairs, the clairvoyant, the clairaudient, clairsentient. So clairaudience, I can hear; clairsentience, I feel; clairvoyant, sometimes I just know. There's something that just comes in. I just know. And then there's when we talk about channeling versus mediumship, there's some similarities. But channeling, oftentimes when you hear people as channelers, they may channel the ascended masters or channel angels. So again, it's a higher realm, but many times they vibrationally bring the person through their body. So, for instance, years ago, Jesus started coming to me and teaching me how to hold his vibration so that I could hold his field. And that way, and he told me, he said, because there will be times when you're doing energy healing, energy work, that I will want to come through you. And you need to be able to hold my vibration, hold my field. And they taught me how to bring them in and get out of the way. That's channeling. So the mediumship is, again, working with incarnates, so people who have crossed over, as well as communicating with one that's here and being that bridge, as you mentioned. So there's some similarities, but you know, there's some slight differences too.
For people, again, who may not be able to wrap their arms around this, am I wrong in saying email, text, reach out to Sandy, and if you have a question and all, ask it. Don't sit with it festering inside. Better to get it out and talk with you, and you can help them rest those questions in their minds.
Absolutely. And I say that to people, like on my website, there's a place where you can contact, and then it comes to me through email, and we can set up just a quick conversation that is no charge. And it's just like to find out, is this the right thing for you? Because honestly, I get the whole woo-woo thing. And I look at how much early on when this was happening, how much I pushed back. Like I was probably 9 or 10 when I first started hearing things, and I shut it down. I was like, I don't know what, So then it wasn't until much later that I really did open up to my gifts. But many people understand it. It is talked about more now. So there are a lot of people who understand that we are in big times of change. So there's more people who are helping us do these levels of healing. But it is uncomfortable for a lot of people because it is woo-woo.
Well, do you think that sometimes people are seeking this because they're looking for closure on something? That you mentioned something about earlier about a father and a brother and all, but some people they in their own minds and bodies and souls are wrestling with trying to put an end to this hurt, and also they're reaching out through someone like you in order to get closure to this feeling.
Yes, but sometimes it's the person on the other side. It's the person
Okay.
who really needs that closure as well. And I had someone reach out to me after seeing something I'd put on Facebook or something, and reach out. And it was a woman that I knew from years ago. So she reached out and said, oh, my son died, so many years ago. I think I'd like to talk to him. So we just set up a Zoom call just to chat about, is this even the right thing? And explain a little bit more about how I do what I do. And then we were scheduling, but just from my time that we first started emailing back and forth, I kept hearing the name Peter, like throughout the day for 2 days, until I actually had the Zoom call with this woman. And when I got online with her, the first question I asked is, who's Peter? And she said, oh, well, that's so-and-so's son. He died, as an adult. I mean, these are adult men, but he died 10 years ago. And I went, oh, okay, well, somehow I got that wrong. So I had the conversation with this woman. I helped her speak with her son and some other people that came through to talk to her. So I think she talked to 3 different people. And then that evening, I went out to dinner with some friends, came home, and again, I'm hearing Peter. And at that point, I thought, okay, so Peter, are you so-and-so's son? Yes, I want to talk to my mother. And I said, okay. He said, I was a shit as a teenager. I really hurt her. So in that circumstance, it was from the other side. Now, normally, again, I don't leave myself open to that, but it came through a friend.
Right.
And so
right.
I emailed back to that woman. I said, okay, here's what happened, because these 2 ladies were friends, and here's what happened. And she said, okay, I'll call her and talk to her, and then I can forward your information. And so I ended up talking with her, and the son and mother talked, and it was extremely healing for both of them. But I mean, primarily for the woman who was still here. And,
Right.
and her son felt bad as a spirit when we see things differently after our death. So there are times where it's from the other side also that they desperately want to communicate.
I think it's fair to say that we as human beings don't have all the answers, and we're always seeking to find the answers with not only what is here on earth, but maybe what is before we got here and what lies after we are gone. And I have to say that I think we are better because we have people to turn to like yourself, Sandy, that can help us find those answers. Because the one thing that impresses me most about you is that you are not speaking from an entertainment angle. You are talking from a clinical angle, from a well-learned and practiced nursing angle to be able to do what you do. I can't even begin to thank you for taking the time to be with me, to share your gift, because I honestly believe it is a gift. And again, people, SandyWessonRN.com, visit it. Feel free to reach out to Sandy. I have found just from this conversation, you are a very approachable person. And I, at first I thought, man, am I going to be able to even speak to this woman on the same level that she is at? But you are approachable. You are meaningful. You are relevant to where we are today as human beings and where we are. And if you need to reach someone, that there are avenues to do it.
Yes. And this has been such a journey for me, a learning journey and a journey of accepting and saying yes.
Yeah.
And because I said yes, the amount that I've learned and seen people heal, to me, is just sacred.
And
So
the pieces of the puzzle are all falling into place for you.
they are.
I I end my show every time with Oscar Wilde, be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. You probably know that phrase and all, because I think you live that way.
Yeah.
So again, thank you all for watching this episode of Someone You Should Know. And again, thank you very, very much to who I consider a very dear friend now, Sandy Wesson. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Stuart, so much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm happy to help anyone in your community.
Thank you. Go out, make it a good one, folks. Bye.
Someone You Should Know